Hello, everyone. This is Bill Apter, and I just finished taping an episode of Count It Out with Mike and Tyler, or Tyler and Mike. They're brilliant hosts. You've got to listen. You've got to see. Count It Out. Yeah, I endorse it. They've got the After Chat seal of approval.
Well, we are live, pals, and welcome to my absolute favorite episode of Count It Out with Mike and Tyler, the Bill Apter sealed of approved Count It Out with Mike and Tyler, that is. My name is Tyler, and I'm here to kick off the festivities. It is our year-end show, the best show we do of the year, the hardest working show we do of the year. And this year, we have outdone ourselves. We have an amazing show lined up for you guys tonight. Basically, what we're going to be doing here is this is going to be part one of two parts of me counting down, well, Mike and I, but it's my list of counting down the top 7 moments of the year 2022. Now, when I say moments of the year, I'm talking about what we saw on camera, in front of that crowd, in the ring, maybe some promos, whatever it is, but it's not going to be any of the backstage stuff. So spoiler alert for you guys right now, what would obviously be the number one biggest news story of the year, Vince McMahon retiring from the WWE, or CM Punk's media scrum, all that stuff. I'm not talking about it this week. We can save that for another time. I'm talking about the best moments that we saw in that ring, on camera, part of the show. No news stories, no big CM Punk stuff and all that stuff. That's not what I'm going for this week here. And we got a couple really fun surprises for you as well. With each point that we're making today, each number on our countdown, we have a separate guest for it. 7 moments, 7 guests. It's the best show of the year, and we've got a hell of a lineup for you right now. Going to throw it to the number 7 moment of the year, and it's going to go right into our number 6 moment of the year. To help me out with the number 7 moment of the year, well, I'm going to let the introduction speak for itself. We've got Impact Wrestling commentator Tom Hannifan, and immediately after that, stick around because we got Jonha from the R3 podcast, tuxedo and all. I guarantee it. He's only going to pull it out for us, baby. Hope you guys enjoy the show, and let's get rolling. So we want to start off our countdown this year in a big way. And joining me for the number 7 moment of the year is Impact Wrestling play-by-play man, Tom Hannifan. Tom, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate that. I'm somehow a big way to do anything. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Listen, man, you're one of the main voices in wrestling for the better part of the last 10 years, and you've been part of some huge moments. So don't sell yourself short, man. We're big fans of your work over here.
I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to us getting back to Canada, us being Impact Wrestling. I don't think I've worked a wrestling show in Canada maybe since 2019, so I can't wait.
Oh, we can't wait to have Impact come back over to Toronto, and I want to talk all about that in a moment here, but I'd love to talk about my number 7 moment of the year first, because I think you're the perfect guy to talk about this. And for me, my number 7 moment of the year, professional wrestling, the year 2022, is Mickie James. Mainly her appearance in the Royal Rumble, but you can make a case for just the entire year that she's had in general. I'd love to know what your reaction was when you heard that Mickie was going to be in the Royal Rumble as the Knockouts Women's Champion.
It felt like Bizarro World. So my first night with Impact was Hard to Kill 2022 earlier this year, a live pay-per-view. And as we're getting ready for the broadcast, they're telling us Mickie is going to be in the Royal Rumble match. So within Hard to Kill and then the episodes of Impact on Access TV that followed, I had to then promote Mickie James being in the Royal Rumble match. So you've got Mickie, who was released by WWE, myself, who's released by WWE, on an Impact broadcast promoting an Impact wrestler appearing on a WWE event with the Impact Championship that she held at the time. it was absolutely bizarre to the point I was getting texts from friends being like, are you being punked? Like you're promoting the company you last worked for. It was very strange. And on top of that, that night she has this fantastic Texas death match with Deonna Purrazzo for the Knockouts World title. So it was just so cool. And then for her to have that moment at the Royal Rumble to represent Impact, to represent herself, frankly, Mickey's a legend in this business. So anything she does, it has a lot of eyeballs on it. So she's had a fantastic year in pro wrestling altogether, in Impact Wrestling, everything that she was doing as the Knockouts World Champion, loses the title to Tasha Steelz in a fun rivalry to watch. And then what she's on right now, this last rodeo, putting her career on the line every single time. She's going out there and proving how good she is every single time. And at this point in her career, she's still competing at an extraordinarily high level that a lot of wrestlers aren't at. So it's really amazing to watch, to be a part of the promotion of her being in the Royal Rumble. Very odd, but also very cool at the same time.
You must have been having some weird kind of deja vu or flashbacks promoting the Royal Rumble there, eh?
Yeah, I'm remembering, I didn't realize that they had rebranded pay-per-views to premium live events or anything like that. So I remembered obviously all the different little pieces of verbiage that WWE likes to use to promote things, and then it's like, oh, it's the Royal Rumble event, and the Royal Rumble match is something different. And I was like, oh yeah, it's like I remembered all those things, so I'm kind of using those things a little bit, but I'm also like, oh, I don't need to do this. So it's just the beginning of me changing some things in the way that I do wrestling commentary, and then also doing what Impact is asking me to do, and obviously not my former employer.
Yeah. Being in that WWE system for so long as well, were you surprised to see that Mickey was going to come over there, that they were open to working like that? Because it's not something you've seen in the past from them.
Yeah, it was certainly surprising at the time, especially, she got to come out to the Hardcore Country theme music. She came out with the Knockouts World Championship. It was acknowledged on commentary. There were a lot of things about it that were really surprising. I think we in professional wrestling have seen a lot of things through the past year, whether it's been AEW doing the Forbidden Door event, whether it's WWE's changes since August, and you've seen, Shinsuke Nakamura is going to go to Noah to face a great Muta. I believe sometime in December, Carl Anderson is finally actually going to defend the Never Openweight Championship in Japan on a New Japan Pro Wrestling broadcast. So there's been some changes in WWE that I think that's the surprising part, is because WWE is obviously not needed to do that stuff for a while. So to see it as an addition, it's really cool. It's really fun for wrestling fans. And then the thing for me is that, getting to know everybody at Impact and having watched Impact for a number of years, Impact's had an open door policy to work with multiple promotions for its 20-year lifespan.
Yeah.
So this is old hat for Impact, which is interesting. But I was really genuinely surprised to see her doing that, to the point when I was handed the information of like, oh, this is what we're promoting. I'm like, really? Oh, well, okay, cool. So it's a neat thing for fans, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, you kind of led into my next question here. You always hear AEW, they use the term forbidden door, but I think it's safe to say that Impact Wrestling has built that door. They've been working, like you said, with everybody from WWE to Ring of Honor to AEW to New Japan to AAA to MLW. What do you think the secret is that Impact is just able to work so successfully with all these other companies?
Well, I remember TNA, Impact, it started as NWA, TNA. So, yeah. I mean, that's the roots of this company. And I think in the roots of the tree go very, very deep, and that everybody within Impact has had the opportunity and the good fortune to have worked in a number of different promotions and made very good relationships. And the thing that I've learned since walking in the door is just Impact Wrestling is just about doing good business and making a good product, period. So if the fans want to see something cool, Impact's going to do everything possible to make it happen, but it's doing what's best, not only for the company, but what's doing the right thing for the other company that you're working for, and the right thing for the talent that you're working for. It's extremely important. And just getting to know Scott D'Amore closely this past year, I see how he does business. I see how much he respects everybody that he does business with. And that's the company as a whole. There's just so much respect for what every other promotion is doing and understanding of what the landscape is. It's as long as you treat everybody fairly and give people an opportunity that helps everybody, why not?
Absolutely. And, you mentioned Mickey coming out, bringing a little bit of that hardcore country with her to the Royal Rumble. How much do you think that meant to her on a personal standpoint, being able to show that side of her to, the WWE universe, as well as just being able to present her as her for everybody to see?
I think great wrestlers evolve. And you see that with Hall of Famers to present day wrestlers, that if you don't reinvent yourself and change with the times, you're dead in the water. There's so many great representations of that. I could go on and on. But Mickie James in Impact Wrestling was like, you know what? I'm going to do something different. And it's very true to who she is, and that it was leaning into who she is as a country music performer, and something that's very near and dear and true to her heart. And I think it represented who Mickie really is. So it was easy for Mickie to go out there and do that, and then also communicate to the audience that this is not a gimmick or a character or just something I made up. No, this is who Mickie is. And I think authenticity wins every single time in professional wrestling. So I thought that was really, really cool for her. And it's just, it becomes a necessity in this business. If you don't adapt, if you don't change, you're dead in the water.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're someone who's gotten to call a Royal Rumble match as well. How hard is the preparation to do a match like that? I'm getting a run.
It's as difficult as getting your cats out of the cat.
Lucy the cat. Lucy the cat is a permanent fixture of the Counted Out podcast with Max the dog here. They like to do permanent run-ins on our show.
That's what pets do. No, to answer your question about Royal Rumble matches, they're fun. They're in, like, I understand that people are like, well, there's like 30 people in the match and there's surprises, etc. There's some things you know in advance. There's some things you don't know in advance. There's some things you don't want to know in advance. And then there's other things that I remember calling a few Rumbles that I had more information than my color commentators did, because I had to, because you have to be prepared for somebody coming out that may be somebody coming back for, it's been a long time, or maybe the audience isn't terribly familiar with this person. Like, oh, I know that person, but like, here's a little backstory on that person. So I've been in both those situations where it's like, oh, this guy's back, it's obvious. This woman is back, it's obvious. And there's others you have to do a little homework and then also inform the audience a little bit. I always liked having more information than my color commentators, because I could allow them to do their thing and shine, and then I'm just doing the nuts and bolts. So that way their reaction and their genuine emotion regarding whatever the situation is comes through. Coming back to what I was saying about authenticity. So they're a lot of fun. They go quicker than you would realize. Like, I know the matches last about an hour, but you're feverishly taking notes of who's first, second, third, because changes happen obviously throughout the day. So I might know one order and another order could come out later that I wasn't aware of. And I've gotten to do something very similar in Impact Wrestling, that the gauntlet for the gold match is a similar structure. The Call Your Shot gauntlet match, very similar structure. So it's bringing what I learned in WWE and just, oh, how do I bring this forward? And it's different with Impact in that, there's characters that are so unique to TNA and Impact Wrestling that educating the audience, once again, very important. And there's other ones coming back like, Bully Ray, Rhino made a return. There are all sorts of people that's like, oh, I know this person. And it's just be in the moment and have fun.
Absolutely. You mentioned the name Bully Ray. He's going to be taking on Canada's own Josh Alexander coming up at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view. We're all looking forward to that. Hopefully Josh can keep that title, bring it home to Toronto, or Windsor, when you guys come on March 24th and 25th there. I just want to ask a couple more questions about Mickie here as we come to the end of the year-end portion of the show here. You've gotten to call a lot of Mickie's matches over the years. Do you have any moments that stick out for you, just from calling Mickie's match? I guess some of your favorite matches.
Yeah, it was strange because I obviously knew who Mickie James was and her legendary rivalry with Trish Stratus. It preceded her, and everything she'd accomplished in WWE was obvious. She came back at an NXT takeover event, and I'm blanking on where it was.
It was actually in Toronto.
Thank you very much.
I was there. I was there live for that one. It was a great one.
And I believe it was against Asuka,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken. And it was just so cool because it's kind of a similar situation to what she did this year at the Rumble, is that she comes back and every single time everybody's like, oh, it's freaking Mickie James. This is really cool. So it was this great moment. I loved calling Asuka's matches. I think she's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, one of the best wrestlers, period, in the world. So to see her go up against Mickie James, a real clash of styles, two very, very different wrestlers and personalities, which I thought was really cool. So it was so neat to be in that moment, that atmosphere in Toronto. There's just nothing quite like performing in Canada. Like the fans are either ravenous or it's, as WWE likes to say, it's Bizarro World, and they can turn a show on its head. So I love doing that with Mickie. And then, as I mentioned, the Texas Death Match that she did with Deonna Purrazzo, I thought was awesome. And again, it was my first night in Impact Wrestling. So it was kind of like, oh, some years had gone by, and, Mickie had, been in WWE, and I'd gotten to call a few of her things there. And then all of a sudden showing up in Impact, and she's doing, this at a very high level. And selfishly, I got to see my broadcast colleague, Matt Raywalt, hit in the head with a guitar, and I loved that. So it was, it's just been super cool, man. I'm hoping this last rodeo continues and see what's in store for Mickie.
Yeah, and we're on the last rodeo right now. How is there a certain level of emotion for you calling these matches, knowing that this could be it for Mickie every time she gets in the ring?
Every time she gets in the ring, and then anytime there's a pin opportunity, anytime somebody's going for a submission or a pin, you realize that her career could be ending in a matter of seconds, and that's really hard to capture in terms of emotion. Like, you feel that desperation, that urgency. So you're just trying to take it all for what it is, and that you're respecting the run that she's been on, the opponents that she's faced, the scenarios that she's had to be in. The fact that she put her career on the line as well in a 6 knockouts tag team match. Like, she could have been pinned in a situation where, there was one point in the match where her 2 tag team partners were virtually taken out. So it was essentially a 3-on-1 opportunity for Giselle Shaw and Vex to beat the heck out of Mickie James. So it's not just a conventional one-on-one match that she's like, oh, this is the only way it needs to happen. No, Mickie gets pinned, it's over, period. And one of the great wrestlers in the history of pro wrestling is gone. And that's by her own accord. I think that's something that's really beautiful about it, is she is putting this on herself. Nobody else is putting this on her. It's not a stipulation that, the company or an opponent has put on her. She is holding herself to a very, very high standard. So respecting that with every single match that she does, and also respecting her opponents, because we continue to harp on it, Raywalt and myself, is that imagine the resume builder that it is for you to retire Mickie James.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's with a lot of different wrestlers throughout time, is that if they can hang their hat on, I retired so-and-so, that's a big, big moment that you can never take away.
Yeah, and something that I think is really cool about Mickie's matches right now is the level of respect that she has in the wrestling community. I get like the same feelings I used to get when I'd watch The Undertaker at WrestleMania. You get that like anxiety, almost that excitement. And I think that just goes to show what Mickie's built in this industry, and the respect that we all have for her.
Yeah, I always learned so much from Michael Cole, and I remember his call when the streak at WrestleMania was broken, and all he said is the streak is over. And what I took away from that, which I thought was a wonderful call, is that simplicity is fine. Simplicity is a good thing, because if I'm going to go on and on and on and on and on, waxing poetically about her career, etc., in these split-second moments of a pinfall or a submission attempt, you just got to get the information across to the fans. You just got to make it as crystal clear as humanly possible. So I've been trying to do that with her last rodeo. Matt Raywalt's done a phenomenal job along with me, in that he could have every possible axe to grind against Mickie James, but you've heard him on Access TV, you've heard him on pay-per-views and Impact Plus events, is that he has an immense amount of respect for Mickie James and her career and what she's doing. So hopefully we're doing that justice every single time she goes out there.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that we don't have to hear you make a similar call to that anytime soon, because
I hope not.
I am not ready to see Mickie ride off into the sunset here. By the time that this portion of our interview airs, we are going to be probably about a week or 2 out from your Hard to Kill pay-per-view, January 13th. Mickie James has got a big opportunity ahead of her. She's got what she's been working for this whole time. Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace. Do you think that Jordynne is the one that is going to make Mickie ride off into the sunset? What does Mickie have to do to get past Jordynne? And what can we expect as fans out of this contest?
Mickie James needs to be prepared to have the beating of a lifetime. Simply put, Jordan Grace has been on a tear as of late. Won the championship at Slammiversary back in June in the Queen of the Mountain match. Let's not forget about that. The first ever Queen of the Mountain match, one of the more dangerous matches that Impact Wrestling has to offer. Since then, she's been through a who's who, and her rivalry with Masha Slamovich has been brutal.
Yes.
Physically intense. And if anything that I've learned about Jordan is that she gets better every single time she goes out there. What she did at Bound for Glory against Masha Slamovich, one of the best matches I've seen this year, period, in pro wrestling. I loved it. And then the last knockout standing match that they had recently at Overdrive, you saw that Jordan Grace is willing to flip that switch and be really nasty when the time comes. Obviously, the rules of that match allowed for it, but I don't see a situation occurring between Mickie James and Jordan Grace where the Juggernaut doesn't live up to that name, doesn't make it physically intense and brutal. So Mickie James is able to withstand a lot of punishment, but it's going to go to a completely different level against Jordan Grace at Hard to Kill.
Yeah, I actually had an opportunity to speak to Jordan a couple months ago, and I asked her, potentially down the line if she could be the one to do that. And her response to me was very calm, very cold, and very, I got to do what I got to do. So I think Mickie has definitely got her hands full with Jordan. I am hoping that the year 2023 can continue the role that the year 2022 had for Mickie James. I want to just make sure that everybody catches Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill Friday, January 13th, main evented by our good old Canadian boy, Josh Alexander, defending his title against Bully Ray. Tom, thank you for helping me count down the number 7 moment of my year.
No problem. Happy New Year, everybody.
Well, after the hot start with the number 7 on the list, we had to bring in the man. Everyone say bonjour to Mr. Jonha from the R3 podcast. Notice how I say R3 now instead of butchering your podcast name every time.
It's about time that you say R3. What is it, only 3 years since you caught on to that abbreviation? It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been on Counted Out. I've been doing a lot of work across the pond at our buddy James, Cafe de Rene.
Yeah.
The first time I'm appearing on Counted Out via Cafe de Rene. I'm hitting Canada, New York, and the UK. I'm really getting international.
The bow tie is taking over the world. Let's talk about Cafe de Rene, man. The bow tie's out of control. And not to mention, I feel super honored. I know it must be a big show because you busted out the bow tie today. It's not casual Jonha like we see over on Cafe de Rene. So This clearly must be a big deal to you then.
No, of course, always a big deal. I had to bust it out because Cafe, I do Cafe, what is it, like once a week sometimes. The bow tie, it takes a lot of work, a lot of preparation. You see the budget's gone down for the set. We don't have the backdrop anymore. We barely have a mic. We have the blurred background. But yeah, of course, Counted Out always near and dear to the heart. Have to stay legit. You can only get the bow tie on Counted Out and the good original R3, of course. Nowhere else will you see the bow tie.
I'm holding it
unless I get a little counted out. Get a little wasted on Cafe and just put it on live on air. You're not going to
there you go. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to the bow tie. If I see the bow tie on any other Joe Schmo podcast, only this Joe Schmo podcast, brother. But what
as long as you send a super chat, it'll get addressed.
Before I want to talk about Cafe de Rene in a second here, but for you and I, this is what we're coming on almost 3 years now of doing work together and becoming buddies here. This is your second appearance. You're the first 2-time appearance on the year-end show. So
that means a lot. That's actually really cool. I didn't realize, but I know that. See, for everyone listening to this, I know you're already a fan of Counted Out. But you got to know, I mean, these guys put in the work, Mike and Tyler. I will sing their praises till the end of the world, end of this podcast thing, because it's serious. Like Tyler told me that I didn't know I was the only 2-time one, but I knew that he said he doesn't like to do 2 consecutive in a row. So I guess that means it's my 3rd year. But the detail, the dedication, and the actual achievement of getting it all done is on display with this year-end show. It's the biggest one I've ever seen from Counted Out.
Yeah,
they deserve all the props. Seriously,
I appreciate
an incredible lineup. Yeah, it's better than some of the pay-per-views I've been seeing that the big guys put on.
Well,
So it's,
I will correct you on one thing though. You said everybody listening to this knows that as a fan of Counted Out. I don't know if anybody does listen to this or not, but something that people are listening to is Cafe de Renee though, man. How much fun you having over there chopping it up with Paul London and Renee and James and the whole crew over there, man.
it's such a fun time. They're all really good people. They really are. And I think we all mesh well together too. And to give credit where credit is due, one of us, right, James, just really took off with that. I mean, he like strapped a rocket to that baby. And it's really, it's showing the hard work that he's put into it so far. And he and Renee both have been, and Paul have been gracious enough to actually let me hop onto that project. I've been with him for maybe like 3 months now. And it's nothing but fun. I mean, it's such an exciting thing. As a fan, a mark, as we refer to on Cafe de Renee, it's really good to it's really good to chop it up with them with some actual wrestlers and see what's up. And Cafe de Renee, Counted Out's fan base is number one, but I would be remiss if I had said Cafe de Renee's fan base has to be a close number two in loyalty and just all around support for the channel. They're great fan base and really great show. Yeah, I'm loving every minute of it.
I jump in every now and then on the live streams. I don't have a lot of time. I can't listen to all of them. I'm usually at work when you guys are on, but I pop in for a couple minutes and I watch the interaction. It's really an incredible thing that you guys are building over there, the group chat, and it's all very positive for the most part too. You know what I mean? Like obviously every group chat has their, the occasional dickhead here and there, but like I interacted with some people in there and the super chats are great and everyone seems to be having a good time. I feel like the channel's really found its identity, but even bigger than that too is every time that they bring a guest on, they're getting picked up everywhere. Like the channel's really taken off, and I feel like it's been great for Renee. I think he's having a good time over there, and finding Paul London coming back to the wrestling scene. It's just great. And tip your cap to James, like you said, all the hard work there, and you're a great fit in there. How's your French coming along? Do we need to put you in contact with our buddy Clay Wilson over here and get your French going? Or
yes. The French is coming along great. Bonjour, oui, and what's the other one? How do you say goodbye?
Au revoir.
Au revoir. That's all for today.
That's it. Eh?
Just gone to Plug Cafe. No.
Est-ce que je peux aller toilette? You need to go take a leak. There you go. Can I use your toilet?
Man, look at Tyler.
That's about all I got.
Busting this out. Where'd this
that's
come
all.
from?
That's all. And pineapple is ananas. La ananas. We used to have a terrible TV show in Canada that we'd have to watch in public school, like called La Ananas, and it'd just be this stupid whatever. I'm not even going to get into it. It's a Canadian thing where we're over here.
Do they not care that you and all the others in the Toronto area don't speak French? Or like, fuck it, they're the they're the dumb ones.
There's a pretty good rivalry between the French and like, because like Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens, right? So like the Quebec side the Quebec side and the Ontario side, they're always beefing with each other and fucking crazy French people, man. They're the best. So I like the French people personally. They're crazy as fuck, but so are we. It's a good time.
He says that with hopes that Jeremy Prophet is listening. He doesn't want Tyler Wolf versus Jeremy Prophet.
Recent graduate of the Nightmare Factory, Jeremy Prophet, by the way. I just saw
Absolutely. That. Shout out
to the boys over at Jofo. Yeah, shout out to the boys at Jofo there. Yeah. Big year for them and big year for the guy that's on the number 6 moment of my top 7 moments of the year 2022. A person that you actually got to run into and have a conversation with in person. We're talking about the year of Logan Paul. Now, before I ask you about meeting Logan at WrestleMania, can you believe that on my list of the greatest moments of the year, we're talking about Logan Paul? Like, does that not sound crazy to you?
Oh, it sounds ridiculous. And honestly, I'll ask you because I knew a little bit about him because I think his content was maybe geared more towards a younger age bracket. I maybe heard his name when I was going to school or whatever, YouTube and all that stuff. But do you even know who it was before they brought him into WWE? I feel like a majority of fans
Like I knew who they were because they had the reputation of being the dickheads that like disrespected that grave site and all that stuff, right? I never liked Logan and Jake. I like them a lot now, though. I think that Jake, you talk about both of them, like Jake Paul, what he's doing in boxing. This guy is like Conor McGregor on crack right now. He's so smart in the way that he's doing this. He's picking guys that have these amazing names like Anderson Silva, but are well past their prime. You know what I mean? So like he beats Anderson Silva, but like that's not impressive anymore by a combat stance. But the market that he's like targeting, it's like, oh fuck, Anderson Silva and Jake Paul, like it's gonna be crazy, and it works, man. Like the clickbait is there, right? But he's so smart in who he fit. He's fighting these guys that are just past their prime and aren't like active full time. You know what I mean? And he's training and like active full time, and these guys are like, fuck it, we'll take a payday. Like, you know, why not?
Oh yeah,
right?
no, it's good for everyone. And also, I remember going to I don't know what Garden show it was, but I feel like I went to the Garden. Oh, for the DX reunion. And oh no, that was Barclays. I went to the Garden a little before that, and the point is, walked in, and Logan Paul. Oh, it was the Raw I went to before that because Logan was on the show. He opened it with that brawl with The Miz. And when you walked in, you saw Jake Paul main eventing the following week for a boxing thing. And I'm like, look at these two guys started on YouTube where we are, and they're both headlining in the Garden, or almost headlining in Logan's case. I mean, what, like, that is insane to me. So to answer your question, yeah, it's crazy that he's even on this list. I mean, the coveted counted out top 7 moments of the year list
my
gets
top
Logan
7
Paul
too, not Mike's, mine. So it's much more credible.
Your top 7. It's much more credible, indeed. Yeah, everyone knows that. And so no,
Mike is going to be hot.
All love to Mike.
Yeah. if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, go in the archives and find when Mike and I almost broke up on Counted Out during our Bret Hart Seth Rollins debate. I told Mike
I was waiting there with the Money in the Bank briefcase.
Yeah.
I was waiting on the sidelines.
Counted Out with Tyler and Jonha. Oh man, let's talk about Logan though. Logan Paul, this guy has picked up professional wrestling like nobody I've ever seen, and that's the crazy comparison. But I'm going to compare him to Kurt Angle a little bit here. Now, obviously, hold on, everybody. Chill, everybody. Obviously, Kurt Angle is the best. Like, yeah, Kurt Angle is on another level. But when you talk about how quick people picked up this business, Logan Paul picked up the entertainment side and the little things that you do side faster than anybody. Like how Kurt Angle picked up the wrestling side. You know what I mean? Like at WrestleMania, when he's throwing the 3 Amigos suplex and getting up and hitting the Eddie shuffle, like his timing on all of that was incredible. And you were in the building live for it. Like that guy was getting mega heat, right?
Mega heat. And he was so enjoyable to watch too, because he's not like I liked Bad Bunny. I did. I thought Bad Bunny did great, but Bad Bunny seemed out of place. Even though he trained so hard, in my personal opinion, he did seem out of place. He seemed like a stunt celebrity type of thing. Logan Paul didn't. He seems like a pro wrestler. And they say he was a fan young, and who knows if that's true or if it's to work it up. But either way, he is accomplishing so much, like you said, picking it up so quick. And yeah, that building was erupting. I actually ran into him hours before, maybe a day before actual WrestleMania. I ran into him outside of one of the fan access convention things. And it was crazy how it happened. I looked in the distance and a golf cart had just crashed into a ditch. And I go, what the hell is that? Nobody's around. They have like these big desolate fields. And all I see is this golf cart, and I go over, even to like check it if everyone's okay, what happened. And I'm like, holy shit. And granted, I didn't even know a lot about him at that point. I just knew his name, knew he was a big star. And I'm like, that's fucking Logan Paul. And I went up to him and I was like, can we take a picture? We talked for like 2 seconds. I filmed a video. I'm always working, brother. Always working. I filmed a little mini interview. I asked him, are you going to stay with WWE after this match with Mysterio and the Miz and whatnot? And he said no. And
Work
I've
you,
since
brother.
reposted that as many times as I can. Yeah, he's working. He's he's already one of the guys. But yeah, I reposted that as many times as I could, saying Logan Paul lied to me, and here we are now. Logan Paul is. You compared him to Angle. I mean, fuck. Like, I feel like I compare him to Angle. I want to put a little Shawn Michaels in there too, because he's got that cocky side to him.
Yeah,
and he gives so much to what he does, and I've heard this said. We've heard it on Cafe de Rene from, established guys like Rene and Paul. I've also heard younger guys say it too, that Logan Paul he did really well, but look at how his knee is already messed up. He destroyed his leg, right? So that tells me two things. One, that he's not going to be an every week type of competitor, which we already knew going into it. He's a special attraction, even better in my opinion.
as he should be,
But
yeah.
As he should. And number two, that he gives everything he can to these performances. It's amazing. He makes it look flawless, but he lets you know that this is no fake sport, because he brings those mainstream eyes. And this is no bullshit. What he's doing, it's real and it's incredible.
I like the point you made about Bad Bunny there too, because I do think Bad Bunny did a great job too. But like when I look at Bad Bunny, I don't believe for a second that this guy could hang with a WWE superstar. But when you look at Logan Paul and the way that he pulls it off, I'm like, I believe in Logan Paul. You know what I mean? Like when he was in there with the Miz, I'm like, yeah, like this is a good fight. Like I could see Logan being in there with him, and that was to me what I really was impressed with even more with Logan Paul. Like, it's one thing to go in a tag team match and have two studs like the Miz and Rey Mysterio to kind of like, hide your flaws and you're new, and even Dominic has come a long way, right? Like to be in there with those guys and to help you out. But then you go one-on-one at SummerSlam with the Miz. There's nowhere to hide there. You know what I mean? There's no tagging out. There's no resting. And the guy was a superstar at SummerSlam too. And to a point where they put him in there with Roman Reigns. And I thought that the Saudi show was the perfect place for that match. And I'm on the unpopular opinion, but I wouldn't have been pissed off if they put the belt on him. In all honesty, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have.
First the Angle comparison, and now that. I mean, credibility, lagging. No, I'm kidding.
Here's my take on that, though. Hear me out, though. Let's just say you put one belt, keep the Universal on Roman, keep the long title reign going, right? If you want to split your belts up a little bit, that's cool. You make an immediate superstar with whoever beats Roman, but if you do it with Logan Paul and you kind of let him heal it up a little bit, oh my God, look he got the belt on his shoulder. Look at me. I barely even trained for this. I'm better than every WWE wrestler on the planet. Like the heat that he would get. And if you keep him as a special attraction, have him squeak out a couple wins by bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I think people would just be coming over the railing to want to kill this guy. I just think you could make a superstar for life if you did it. I understand, and it's the right move that they didn't do it, but I would not have been upset if they did it at all.
It's not even because of Logan. It's really just because of everything they've been doing with Roman. If it wasn't Roman, I'd probably agree with you. If it wasn't Roman, it wouldn't have been as good as a match, in my opinion, either. But, hey, it's a lot of ifs and whatevers. But, like, in the end, he put on a hell of a performance. And I think that if he was in there with, I don't know, like, I want to see him against Rollins. I think that would be an incredible match.
Yeah.
I want to see him against what everyone's talking about, John Cena.
That's the rumor for WrestleMania right now.
Break the internet. It would shatter the internet. So
those would be fun promos leading up to WrestleMania, too, with those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That was going to be my question to you. Who do you want to see him in there with next? I think Cena's a great answer.
I think Cena is number one for me. Number two would be Rollins, because Logan just has that style to him that, like, I don't know. It's a very wrestling fan thing to say, but like a high flyer in tights, like with that kind of like modern look to him that just, is willing to risk it all, really is. It meshes well with Rollins. I was going to say it's hard to come by. It's hard to come by someone who's so crisp, and Rollins meets that crisp for me. So I feel like they'd really mix it up well.
Yeah, I feel like Cena, I like it because I think that Logan's next opponent should be a really big name coming off Roman. Like, and not that Rollins isn't a big name, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if Cena comes back, it doesn't mean anything for, Austin Theory to beat him. You know what I mean? I know that's kind of what they teased a little bit. I don't think it's going to elevate Theory a lot. And I don't think that Cena beating anybody is good for anything either. So, like, have him beat Logan Paul. Like, I think it's perfect.
Absolutely. And not to get too off track, but look at what Theory did last WrestleMania. He's already established, in my opinion. Like, that established a guy. If that doesn't, nothing will type of thing for Theory.
Exactly,
so he's good. Logan it was interesting. I think Logan Paul has as many or a little bit more, I could be wrong, but a little bit more followers than the entire WWE Instagram account.
It wouldn't
so
surprise
this
me.
guy's not hurting. Yeah, he is not hurting for notoriety or anything like that. So he can really fight anybody. But John Cena, oh my God, that would blow up. And they're in Hollywood, they're in LA.
Right.
And I also love the unpredictability. A lot of people are saying it's Triple H is using these podcasts to further storylines like he did with McAfee back in the day with Adam Cole. Or there was something else McAfee show. That was probably Vince. But you know what I'm saying? He's using these podcasts because the Roman match was built from the Impulsive podcast, which I actually watched that, and it's kind of entertaining. But I love that he's using that. And on there, you heard Logan just be like, hey, I texted Triple H. You want to break the internet, and I want Cena. So who knows?
I mean, it would be huge.
I think it would be amazing,
draw, especially if you're doing 2 nights of Mania. You put Logan and Cena on the one night. You put The Rock on the first night. Got Austin rumored to do some stuff. Pretty big Mania if you got all those guns going, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, and I really can't wait to see what Logan Paul does next. I feel like I'd love to see someone like Logan in a Money in the Bank.
That would be cool too.
Or Rumble.
Can you imagine?
In the Rumble.
That's interesting that you said that, Jonah, because I've been trying to think of ways that the WWE can save Money in the Bank. I think they've kind of fucked it. I think it's been really shitty lately.
Yeah.
And to have a guy like Logan Paul carrying that briefcase around, that is really interesting to me. I really like that a lot, actually. And especially coming off
from
that
the mind
Roman match.
Yeah,
that's it. The mind. If you know, you know on that one, folks. If you know,
you know. You got to get a life.
Get on that's it. Get on that Citadel. But I like that a lot, and especially coming off that Roman match where he did look so good, and he proved he could hang in there. And Roman matches are kind of special as they are now, because I always say that Roman Reigns matches feel like Undertaker at WrestleMania matches now. You know what I mean? Where everything is that buzz to it. So yeah, Logan Paul, Money in the Bank.
That's a cool comparison.
Yeah. I get the same feeling when I watch Drew and Roman fight. I'm like, oh shit, we're gonna get a new champ finally.
Oh, that was
right,
amazing. Drew and Roman.
Yeah, but Logan Paul, Money in the Bank. I hope they do that. I think that would be absolutely incredible. Logan Paul, Money in the Bank, sign me up.
Yeah, I'm with you. And he takes that briefcase, shows it off on all of his platforms, right? Shows it off everywhere. I mean, it gets great exposure. Right. They probably slap a huge WWE on it just so people know what's up.
I mean,
it'd be great. Yeah.
And you know what's great about it too?
Really
Logan's not on TV every week. So he could just randomly show up with a tease. He could just show up, he couldn't be on TV for a month and a half, 2 months. Just show up, cut a promo, leave. Am I going to cash in? Why is Logan here? Logan's in the building. He's cashing in tonight. That's exciting shit, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I really want it. I do. I mean, you had Lesnar win it a few years ago. Why not Logan, right?
Why not, right?
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll ask you then, Jonah, as we get ready to put a pin, because I don't think I've ever talked about Logan Paul in my life as much as I have right now. We're coming to the end of the year, which means the beginning of a new year. Royal Rumble season is coming. Who you like in the Royal Rumble this year? A lot of ways this can go this year.
Well, I'll tell you right now that I will be at WrestleMania in attendance, not on the well, who knows after last year, you never know, right? But no, I want to see the great one, return. I really want to see The Rock come out in the Rumble. I've heard he's not going to be in the Rumble from like every source, but who the fuck cares? I want The Rock in the Rumble. If it's not The Rock, then my picks are so far-fetched. Okay, far-fetched picks, The Rock and CM Punk. Those are so far-fetched, but those are my picks. My actual pick, Cody Rhodes. I think Cody comes out and wins the Rumble.
See, I hope
that's
not.
the realistic choice.
I think it's too soon.
That's fair. That's fair. And I could agree with you to a point with that. I think it is probably a little too soon. If it's not Cody, the only other person, I mean, I wouldn't want him to win the Rumble, but I've been hearing rumors of Big E being healed.
Oh yeah, eh?
Yeah, those are my four though. I mean, CM Punk is obviously like unrealistic. The Rock though, I really think The Rock could be in it. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, The Rock makes the most sense. Sami Zayn, I think, would be good.
Well, that's an interesting one. I mean, he's more over now than he ever will be. Probably.
If you want to get crazy,
if you want
to get crazy with it, I won't say too much more about that. Little spoiler: we might be talking about Sami Zayn a little bit later on in the show or next week's show, depending on if you made my list or not. I don't know. 2 parts, folks. But
I thought you had some inside knowledge or something there for a second.
I know the guy. I know the guy who made the list pretty good. I got some inside knowledge of what's going on here. But I think it's safe to say that the Royal Rumble, most exciting pay-per-view of the year. Let's hope for your sake, since you are going to WrestleMania this year, that it's a big winner for you and we get a big WrestleMania, because I want to see Jonha partying with all the stars again.
That was insane. Yeah, I want to see it too. Trust me, it's LA. I want to get counted out, if you know what I'm saying. So
people, the 3 people that are listening to this, they know exactly what you're damn well saying, man.
Hell yeah, counted out.
Hell yeah. Oh man. Well, before we wrap it up, man, tell the people where they can see everything you're doing. I don't know if we have enough time to get everything in you're doing. You're a busy man. Holy shit.
I'm trying to keep busy. The content on my channel, R3, Rewind, Recap, Relive, it's keeping flowing. You know, we got another animation in the works right now that I'm periodically getting done. If you missed the Great Khali animation, it's very entertaining. It's one of a kind. You should go check that out. But all my interviews too. Most recently, Virtual Basements, the wrestling code video game that's coming out. I interviewed the star who's doing all the motion capture for that. So that was a fun talk. If you're into gaming, check that out. And tons of guests on the horizon, thinking of trying to make it a big 2023 for the channel. R3 2023, I think it should be huge. That's everything for me. Other than that, I'm doing a lot of Cafe de Renee stuff. Like I said, if you want to catch me every Monday night with Renee Dupree and James and sometimes Paul London, then you should check that out. This Thursday, I don't know when, this is probably not going to air before Thursday. But
no, this is...
if you listen to this...
it's gonna air. This will be dropping actually on Thursday as you speak.
Well, hey, tune in tonight then if this is released earlier in the day, because I'm going to be talking to the one and only Kenny Bolin with Renee Dupree. Not exactly talking, I've heard. Listening.
Yeah, I think
listening
a lot of
to
listening.
Kenny Bolin.
I know you've been excited
so
for
that's
that
going to
one.
be an interesting time.
That's awesome,
I've never spoken to him before. Probably won't, but I can't wait. Yeah.
And for anyone that's never seen Jonha's show before, which you're crazy if you haven't, I love the concept. You take a rising star, you take a legend in the business, you pair them together with you in the middle, and let the good times roll, right? And somebody who is going to be on our show next week for the second half of the 2-part list here is Van Landen, who was on your show there with Barry Horowitz. So little bit of a tie-in there. If you want to go check out Van Landen, the barn burner on R3, head over to Jonha's channel. And there's some pretty good counted out clips that have been popping up on your channel over there too, eh?
Counted out is a very, very important part of R3's content machine right now, for sure, especially with a bit more tasks on my hands these days. Counted out, Tyler and Mike, they really keep the stuff flowing. They got some amazing guests, and I mean, really, I just gotta finish that off by plugging Counted Out, because seriously, I've been following Counted Out since inception, basically.
Yeah,
and I've never seen a stronger year. I've never seen a stronger year than this year. I mean, they are like, they might as well be signed by Impact Wrestling. It's insane the amount of guests. It's crazy. You need to check out Count It Out if you haven't. They are amazing. Mike and Tyler, such hard workers, the dedication, the knowledge. I mean, it's all over the place. Make sure you're checking out Count It Out. Seriously.
You know, I think that's a perfect segue then, Jonha, to remind the listeners and just something that I'm really proud of. Here's a look back, so you can say, of all the guests that we've had join us this year on Count It Out. And Jonha, thank you for sticking around, and thanks for coming on and doing this, man. We got to link up, get you on for a list in the new year.
100%. In another year, I will return to Count It Out.
That's it. That's it. Well, we'll see you. We'll see you in 2 more years for the year-end show, and next year, you know, and maybe early 2023, we'll get you and Jeremy on here to do a list.
I was gonna say I'll send Jeremy with a tuxedo shirt.
Yeah. He hasn't earned the bow tie yet. Thanks, buddy. And guys, like Jonha said, we had a big year, a lot of guests, and let's take a look at who we had on the show this year.
Hello, everybody. Eazy-E, Eric Bischoff.
This is your Impact Knockouts World Champion, Mickey James.
Tyson Kidd.
Young Jay Lee.
This is Paul the Butcher Vashon.
Jumping Jim Brenzel.
This is Gail Kim, Impact Hall of Famer.
This is Brian Pillman Jr.
This is Lenny Leonard on the Mountie.
This is Ernest Miller, the Cat.
This is El Diablo, Gabriel Fuerza.
This is Joey Funk Jr.
It's the Zombie Princess, Jimmy Jacobs.
Jordan Grace.
Warlord of Weird, Sin Bodie.
Wai Ting from Post Wrestling.
Tom Hannifan from Impact Wrestling.
PJ Phil.
Pretty Ricky Wilde.
This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Evans from the heavens.
187, Detroit's Homicide.
The virtuosa Deanna Prazo.
This is Vince Russo. Bro, I am on Count It Out, bro. Count It Out, bro. The greatest show out there with Mike and Tyler. Where are you? Are you watching this show? You better be watching this show, bro, because Mike and Tyler are right up there at the top of the heap. Count it out. Don't miss it.
What a crazy show we've had so far for you guys. Unbelievable. We had Jonha talking about Logan Paul, Tom Hannifan talking about Mickey James. Leave us some comments. Let me know what you think of my list so far. We got one more point to go here for this week. I have an amazing conversation coming up here. The number 5 moment of the year. I'm going to be joined by somebody who, well, you're going to hear it in the interview, but somebody who I look up to a lot. One of the guys that is an inspiration for Count Out to start. Very credible journalist, great podcaster, Mr. Wai Ting from Post Wrestling. Guys, check it out. Here's Wai Ting and I breaking down the number 5 moment of the year. All right, so we are at the number 5 moment of the year, and joining us is one of the co-founders of what, in my opinion, one of the most credible news sites and most entertaining podcasts in all of professional wrestling. He is one of my inspirations for starting Count It Out. We are joined by Post Wrestling's own Wai Ting. Wai, thank you so much for coming on and doing this, man.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the kind words. That's what a great introduction. I'm honored and privileged to be here.
Well, before we get talking about some of your favorite moments, I'd just like to share a little bit of a personal story for our viewers here and our listeners. About 3 years ago, Mike and I had the idea to kind of start fiddling around and trying out a podcast. And I actually sent you a message on Twitter. And you were very kind and you replied and you gave us some great advice about some equipment to use, some editing software. And I want to send a big thank you for just taking a couple minutes out and a couple of the little advice that you gave. It was a huge help. We're here 3 years later, coming on 150 episodes, and we have talked to some of the most incredible names in professional wrestling. And I owe a big part of that to you and the work that you and John do as well. So thank you for that, Wai.
Well, hey, man, like, honestly, all I really did was just kind of point you in the direction of some equipment that you might find useful. And the rest of it was all you and Mike entirely. So I'm more than happy, whenever people have questions, especially technically. It's sort of, podcasting is a passion of mine. So I'm always happy to, help out whenever I can.
Well, we appreciate it. And, you, because of you and John, Count It Out is here, a big part of that. So, and we're at our year-end moment here. So kind of want to talk a little bit about just what you're enjoying in the world of professional wrestling right now. What are some of your, not even highlights of the year, but just things that you're enjoying watching in the world of wrestling right now?
You know what? I'm finding it quite exciting to see sort of this resurgence of interest and maybe creative. I don't know. Creative respect, I should say, maybe in the WWE, ever since the Paul Levesque change. And maybe I temper some of that because certainly the mood was a lot more positive immediately after SummerSlam than maybe even it is today, where I feel like the show, as we're recording this right now, and I don't know if this is kind of breaking the rules or anything, but mid-November, it's not like it's been completely different from when Vince was around, but nonetheless, I find the show overall better, and I find a lot of the things that the WWE is doing, in getting rid of, for instance, the 24/7 division, in trying to elevate its secondary championships in the IC in the US. A lot of that stuff feels very positive, and I'm kind of excited to see, especially as we head towards WrestleMania season, what a Paul Levesque-led WWE is going to look like. So that is certainly one of those things. Over on the AEW side of things, I mean, I think MJF, one of the top talents, of course, right now in the industry. And if Full Gear ends the way I think a lot of us are intending, to see him basically lead a company that I think is in very much of a need of a real strong shot in the arm after the whole CM Punk Elite drama. I'm very excited to see what's to come with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very fascinating where the WWE and AEW were at the beginning of the year, where everybody was all, AEW is the cool place to be. It's the happy place to be. And it almost feels like that momentum has flipped over. And now the WWE is kind of taken that cool kid spot, if you will. And now AEW, like you said, I do think they really need a big show here to end the year on a high note and try to get rid of some of that black eye that they had.
Certainly, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think the scales are a bit more balanced, but, like with wrestling, this is what we love about having competition, right? The fact that there are two options, the fact that we can always maybe, look towards one as being maybe at least the creative leader, and then the other as, the person trying to chase. For a long, long time, I think, WWE was seemingly working at a real handicap, with a guy who up top who's honestly completely out of touch, at least creatively. I'm not talking about business. There's really no competition there. But for my enjoyment, for what I do, I talk about the creative, and creatively, it was a very creatively bankrupt place, and it created a wonderful hole in the market for AEW to come in and deliver us 3 years now of incredible content that I think caters specifically to the jaded fan, like a lot of us are. But now WWE is coming in, I think, trying to win a lot of those audiences back. And for me, it's been very exciting just to follow both products to see how they respond.
Yeah, I'm definitely at the beginning of the year, I was not watching a lot of WWE. I was having a hard time getting through it. I would follow it. I would do the YouTube clips, the quick recaps, if you will, but I couldn't sit there and watch a whole show. And, now coming off like Clash of the Castle, I watched that entire show from start to finish. I thought it was fantastic. SummerSlam, I watched this entire show from start to finish. They really got the momentum. I'm really happy to see that we're getting rid of pay-per-views like Hell in a Cell, because I like that they might try to start protecting that gimmick a lot more, which I think is important for the credibility of it. I always hated when it was like, oh, it's October. Okay, who's feuding now? Put him in the cell. I thought that kind of hurt that gimmick a lot. So I like that. It looks like at least Triple H is trying to protect that a little bit more as well.
Certainly. Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of decisions feel like they are good decisions. They're not all fantastic decisions, of course, but I think for the most part, things seem to be trending in the right direction. It's also the continued, perhaps jumping of talents we may eventually see in the new year as well. Cody, of course, I think was a big story this year, him making the jump from AEW to WWE and having as incredible of a performance as he ended up having, both at WrestleMania and then the subsequent match, of course, with him, with that bruised pec, in a Hell in a Cell. It was, I think a real sign that there is competition. There is real competition, and there's a wide open marketplace up top for the biggest names in the industry to jump. So as the new year comes and a lot of those contracts might end up expiring, will we continue to see a flow of talent back and forth?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you and I are about the same age. I'm born in '84, so we grew up kind of with that attitude era, watching those people jump back and forth and the excitement, and you never knew what was going to happen, who was going to show up where, and I think it's really fun for this newer age fan now to get to see that with the Forbidden Door. You don't know which promotion's working with who. It does add that excitement that kind of was missing for a long time in wrestling. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan right now.
Completely, yeah. As you mentioned, WWE seemingly like opening up relationships with companies in Japan, in Noah, working with Shinsuke Nakamura and putting on the match with Great Muta, and who knows what else, I suppose, at this point. But it feels at least different, and it feels refreshing. So, yeah.
Now, you and John, you guys covered a lot of stuff over the year. Obviously, I think Vince McMahon stepping down is the biggest story probably of the year, in my opinion. But what are some of the things that you think that 2022 is going to be remembered for when we look back on it?
Yeah, it'll certainly be Vince. I think second to that, of course, is the entire rise and fall of CM Punk in AEW. Probably something that I don't know many of us would have foreseen. Really, even the night of All Out, up until that press conference with CM Punk, hoisting the championship, like having the big culminating moment of his story up until that point in front of his hometown, seemingly, there to lead the company into the next year and beyond. And then having it all crash down in a matter of minutes, is really something none of us saw. So that whole thing with the Elite, I think, will also be what 2022 will be remembered for. I feel like Sasha Banks and Naomi, at least, for a long time, was really the talk. It's amazing, just to kind of think about the stories that immediately get washed away because another big story came around. But I think the Sasha Naomi saga, to be concluded, of course, but that to me was a major story as well. As we mentioned, Cody Rhodes, moving from AEW to WWE, that was a move that up until that point felt completely unprecedented, and also not something you would ever expect. So I would say those are at least just some of the top stories that we'll probably be looking back at 2022 at.
Absolutely. And another big story of the year 2022 is my number 5 moment of the year, and that's the return of Bray Wyatt. I kind of want to ask you, even going back a little bit before the return, were you surprised when we saw Bray Wyatt's name being one of the talents released last year?
Yes. I think a lot of us were. I mean, primarily because he has been reportedly one of the top merch sellers for the company. And, even though the content on screen really has been very inconsistent in terms of, I think, critical acclaim and just my, fan enjoyment, fan response even. The merchandise aspect of his character and brand, I suppose, if you could call it that, always felt like, to me that WWE would want to keep him. But I also wondered, did Vince kind of run into a wall with him? Were there just disagreements backstage about where to take the character? Vince is always, I think, probably a tough person to try to analyze when it comes to what he's looking for, especially with a character as unique as Bray Wyatt's.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Bray too, we just kind of talked about it, that excitement of, is somebody going to jump back and forth? Who's going to show up in what promotion? We didn't see that with Bray Wyatt at all. And it seemed like anytime there was a big, rumored AEW surprise, Bray's name was always at the top of the list, but he kept a low profile. He was just kind of on his social medias, did a couple appearances here and there. But I really think that factor kind of made his return a lot bigger deal when it happened as well.
No doubt. Yeah. His is an interesting one where I feel like he is really made, I think, for the scale that the WWE production offers him. AEW you know, like first of all, his contract at this point probably doesn't come very cheap. And if you're Tony Khan looking to spend money on talent, I don't necessarily know if, you know, Wyndham Rotunda is the type of person you pull out the big checkbook for, because it's not what AEW is built on. That sort of spectacle, that's sort of like, you know, ghoulish character, even though they have them. Bray Wyatt, I would say, and The Fiend in particular, is so much more like a production heavy gimmick that I just don't necessarily think it fits AEW, nor do I necessarily feel like AEW has the production, they have it, but I just don't think they've demonstrated like their willingness to rely that much on post-production and even pre-production, you know, when it comes to their TV storytelling. So I think ultimately WWE was probably going to be the best fit for him.
Yeah, we kind of saw that a little bit with Matt Hardy as well when he tried to bring that broken character into AEW. It just didn't fit. It didn't work. And I agree with that, actually, Tick. I didn't really think about that with Bray, for sure. You know, you talk about Bray and the character development that he has. Do you personally have a favorite version of Bray Wyatt? Because we've seen the evolution of his character a lot.
Yeah. I think most, like, you know, there's really, to me, only been like two like real significant ones. One was, of course, you know, the whole Wyatt family thing with the fedora, and the other most prominent one would be, you know, The Fiend. And I think they both kind of have their real positives and standouts. For me, like, you know, I just remember back to WrestleMania 30, I believe, like in New Orleans, and just the entire town seemingly walking around there dressed up as Bray Wyatt in the fedora. And, you know, when he came out with those Wyatt family vignettes, that style of promo and the look of those things were so incredibly cool. It immediately just felt like, you know, like a great movie villain that I think, you know, suddenly became this thing that everybody wanted to, you know, impersonate, either at you know, among your friends or whatever, or at wrestling shows. So I think that was great. But to me, it was taken to new heights with The Fiend. And I don't necessarily know if I'm that much of a fan of, you know, the Fiend character itself. But for me, the greatest highlight, I would say, of, like, you know, my enjoyment of Wyndham Rotunda's career was the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena during that particular WrestleMania. I think it was 36.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, where it was an entire, if you want to call it a cinematic match, then yeah, I would term it that. But I wouldn't even necessarily call it a cinematic match. To me, it was more so an extended vignette, an extended, you know, video package, but one that I think did such a great job of, like, really exemplifying the psychological torturous aspects of that character, using somebody as, I think, ingrained in sort of, like, you know, WWE's fabric as John Cena, with his very, like, deep history. This match to me was, or vignette, like, was just a great psychological breakdown of all the aspects and all the fallacies in the babyface John Cena character that I feel was probably the closest we've got to, like, you know, a direct translation of what the Fiend should be from Wyndham Rotunda directly to the audience.
It really shows that creativity and just thinking outside the box and doing something different, and that's what we saw with the way that this return happened. Do you think that this is one of the most unique and creative returns that we've ever seen in WWE history?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I would say it's the most I've been challenged as a viewer when it comes to one of these sort of return vignettes. I think the closest we've had to it prior might have been something to do with, like, Chris Jericho and, like, the Save Us sort of, like, mystery. I'm sure there are other examples that I'm not necessarily thinking of in the past, but I just don't recall a time where I've had to, like, dig as deep, you know, and by, like, there was no mystery about who it was going to be. Maybe for the first couple weeks, like, some people suggested, oh, it could be another way to introduce Karrion Kross, or, like, you know, this person. I mean, it was always going to be Bray Wyatt, just in terms of, like, you know, somebody who hasn't been here in a while, just in terms of star power. We all knew who it was going to be, but nonetheless, it was still incredibly fun to, like, you know, specifically figure out all the little details that I think, you know, he and I believe Rob Fee and whoever else was in charge of, you know, creating all of these little Easter eggs, to the point where you'd have to go online after every single one of these QR codes aired somewhere, and then finding little things in the source code, downloading the photo that would result in these images, and then looking into the metadata into the photos, doing Google searches for coordinates to find a little clue about either a place called Wyndham or something like that. It was just all incredibly neat and completely different from the WWE's product, which I would say, especially under Vince, was very much catered to just surface level. Here it is, and don't look any deeper.
I think it's interesting that you kind of compared it a little bit, not compared it, but that you brought up the Chris Jericho Save Us vignettes as well, because with that they were very prominent things on TV. But with this, we started out with this angle during a commercial break on SmackDown where they just played the White Rabbit song. And I thought that song was so perfect. But what an interesting way to start off this angle during a commercial break of all things, where you're almost, banking on this point and hoping that somebody's going to record it and put it on social media and get that talking. I loved it personally. I thought it was such a great way to start the angle.
Completely agreed. Yeah, I even forgot about that. That was just how this whole thing kicked off, was them at house shows and during commercial breaks at live events playing that song and dimming the lights and just, relying on the audience to tell their story. And of course the audience did. They know their audience. They know that this is a crowd that when they don't necessarily want stuff publicized will find, a way to publicize the information that's out there. I think, I don't know this, but just for me, the greatest examples of this sort of fan sleuthing would be through something like, Marvel movies and Marvel TV shows. In particular for me, WandaVision, which was, a show that I think was littered with some Easter eggs, but the audience looked even deeper into it to the point where every little frame was kind of analyzed. Every little bug, for instance, that was flying around, people were trying to decipher what exactly it could mean. And ultimately some of that stuff panned out, but a lot of it was just the audience thinking too much. Nonetheless, it shows an aptitude and capability for a fan to think on that level. And it's just not an arena that I'm typically used to professional wrestling kind of playing in. With New Japan, I think is for certain stories, and AEW for certain stories. Wrestlers themselves are able to put a lot of detail into, I think, their work. But the WWE as a product promoting something like this through a video, I'm not used to it.
And I like that you said earlier, we all knew it was going to be Bray, and then sometimes that's okay. You know what I mean? We all knew CM Punk was going to come back to AEW last year, and it made for that great moment. And it's almost like if it wasn't Bray, I think everybody would have kind of been let down by the whole build, right? Yeah,
totally, absolutely, yeah. Ultimately, what the whole experiment was to build hype for Bray Wyatt's return. It was to get you to watch the next show. It was to get you to ultimately, get interested in Extreme Rules, or the addition of SmackDown that he was going to set to appear in the next day. And I would say for the most part, it's been very successful. Reflected in metrics and merchandising sales. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me personally too, I really like the evolution of the QR codes that they did, because it would start, very small in the background. Then the next week it'd be a little more prominent, and it got to the point where it's on the back of the clipboard. I thought that was a fun little wink and nod to the crowd, you're about to get something too.
Totally, absolutely, yeah. For me, QR codes have been really nothing more than just ways to go to your official website. For them to use the QR code as this kind of visual tool to lead people into this sort of a path towards a mystery. The QR code itself isn't enough to reveal what the story is. The QR code only reveals the next clue in the path. I thought it was incredibly fun.
Now, I don't know off the top of my head if this is entirely true, but they never mentioned any of this on TV, right? They kind of didn't mention the QR codes. They never talked about White Rabbit. To me, that's incredible that they built up all of this excitement, all of this anticipation. We all knew it was coming at Extreme Rules, and they never promoted it once on TV. That blows my mind.
True. Yeah. I mean, that's part of what I think makes it fun, right? The audience is not being led at all by the story and by what's seen. You almost get the sense that you're doing something that you're not supposed to. When you're going to the QR code and finding the image and then right-clicking on the website to look at the source code, you feel like you are doing that. You feel like you have earned that. You feel like you are doing something that, nobody expected you to find, but you are special because you found it. That's the type of thing that I think, wrestling fans are looking for. That's a challenge now, for them to be engaged with. That changed and has changed, of course, since he's returned, where I think they've tried little clues like that. And they've had the announcers call it out, and it just didn't work, or at least it really does not feel the same. It's more like, you kind of feel like you're being a little babied as a fan, when I think it was, the challenge was nice before.
No, absolutely. It's almost like, maybe this could be a new trend that we're going to see. This is, in my opinion, the first really successful time that social media to this extent has been brought in and used in a big storyline. If you can tap into that creativity and do it right, this could be the start of a whole new trend across professional wrestling.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, with the caveat that, sometimes wrestling is also the best. Most often, I would say, wrestling is probably the best when it is simple, when you're telling sort of your tried and true, good versus evil stories with, a guy coming out there and speaking his mind, cutting a promo about why you should watch him beat up the villain, in the next pay-per-view. That to me will never be replaced. I think there's still a lot of questions for this Bray Wyatt character and how you can translate effectively what they've built with this character into a compelling in-ring product. I don't think they've proven that yet. In building hype and building anticipation and building buzz on the internet, yeah, all that stuff is great, and there's lessons that you could certainly learn from it that I'm sure they have. But whether or not it can effectively translate or certainly replace traditional wrestling storytelling, I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
I kind of hope that they keep it special. You know what I mean? I noticed, I found, at least when WWE got their hands in that cinematic world, they really went overboard with it, kind of watered it down a little bit. The types of stuff like this, it's very catered to certain characters. I could never imagine Stone Cold Steve Austin having a QR code. You know what I mean? But for a character like Bray, I think it's great. And if used properly, it could just open up this whole new world for sure. But I'd love to talk about the big moment finally at Extreme Rules. How did you think that the overall presentation of the return was delivered?
The Extreme Rules first night, I thought, was really well done. I mean, again, it was very much like the CM Punk situation of last year, where everybody knew what was to come. On air, really, they've made almost absolutely no mention of it, other than the fact that they might have mentioned towards the end, some mention of the White Rabbit. But we all knew what was happening. All the lighters, or I should say cell phones, were out, by the time the lights had dimmed. And then what they were called upon was to deliver, I think, a pretty, memorable theatrical re-debut for Bray Wyatt. And I think they managed to do that. It came at the end of the show. You had, of course, all the Firefly Funhouse characters pop up throughout the crowd, and then ultimately ending with, Bray Wyatt donning, I believe at that time, a new mask before walking out. And that was that. I think some people might have been expecting more. Maybe they were expecting him to actually cut a promo or something else. But I mean, for me, from what I was able to gather, at least, the vast majority of the audience was satisfied because, they did such a good job with the theatrics of the reintroduction.
Yeah, I think less is more in that case. If he came out and cut this big promo, yeah, I like that they saved it for TV. They can build it up, try to get a rating up a little bit. I thought that being in Philadelphia was perfect for that as well. That crowd is always passionate and make things feel bigger than what they are as well. And Bray Wyatt got a superstar reaction. It's got to be one of the biggest ovations I've ever heard him get.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Now the follow-up after that moment, I feel like, probably deserves to be discussed as well, because they came out of Extreme Rules with all the momentum in the world, and then that Friday on SmackDown, Bray Wyatt came out speaking as his genuine self. and thus beginning the sort of storyline of him trying to compete with this other persona that's been trying to take over his, like essentially this sort of like a dissociative identity disorder type of gimmick he's been working. And I've been a bit mixed on it because, we're talking about a month now of this sort of promo, and I feel like it's been a lot of like running around the same sort of thing without moving the story forward too much. And then even like, him now working or beginning a new program with LA Knight. I haven't really been the biggest fan of, I think, the presentation thus far, because going into it with the QR codes and all the very unique types of storytelling going into the debut, I don't feel like we've seen really any of that. And again, the challenge is going to be trying to translate that into something in ring. But I just feel like what we're seeing right now is a bit more base level, unless there's a lot beneath the surface of these sort of promos that I'm really not getting. What is your take? What do you think?
I'm kind of in the same boat, actually. I thought his first promo back was really nice. It was a touching moment. And I feel like we're just kind of stuck in that loop right now. I've liked a couple little things that they've done. I really liked, I believe it's Crown Jewel, where Alexa Bliss was cutting her promo and they flashed that little upside down logo of Braves or whatever. I like that little throwback, and it put her off a little bit. I'm not sure LA Knight is the way I would have gone to start with Bray. I don't understand, the little backstage skit that they've done yet. And I'm kind of in a wait and see mode right now. I do think it's time. And, as we're recording this, it's November the 15th, so obviously things have changed by the time we air this, but where we are right now, I'm not let down, but I'm losing my interest in what they're doing with Bray right now.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. There's still going to be, the moment they decide to actually execute something big with this character in towards the top of the card, for instance, against a more prominent name, I think the audience will be right there for it. But can they maintain that interest? Can they maintain that mystique that they built so well with the White Rabbit stuff up until this point?
Yeah, we're also seeing teases of a possible faction with Bray. What do you think of that idea? Do you like the idea of him coming in with people? Who are some names that you think would fit well with Bray?
Well, I mean, there's been a ton of speculation about the identity of this Uncle Howdy character. A lot of people have been able to point out the earring that Uncle Howdy wears with the cross that Bo Dallas, of course, his brother, also has sported in the past. So I think a serious turn on Bo Dallas as part of this sort of faction would be very interesting. I'd love to see that. I don't know if I can think of too many other names on the current roster. I think like Vincent, from ROH, like a lot of people were suggesting him because of his close ties to Wyndham Rotunda in real life. If it's going to be really anybody, I would anticipate maybe some of the names that are outside of the company right now. And then maybe somebody in the, I would hate to see Alexa Bliss back in. Like, I think she, even though I suppose it's an interesting part of her character now, I never liked all the Lily stuff. I thought it was just sort of a, I don't know, cheap version of what they were doing with The Fiend, and I much prefer Alexa as a heel as her actual self in the women's division.
See, I thought that they had such potential when they started that with The Fiend and Alexa Bliss. I loved it. I was getting like those horror movie vibes from it, where she was in the trance with him, and then it just got silly, the Lily stuff, and I just didn't understand where her character went there. If they were to put Alexa back in, I'd like them to maybe take that more serious road, but it also kind of feels like a step backwards for both of them at this point as well. It's the same thing, we're hearing a lot of rumors about maybe Eric Redbeard or Eric Rowan coming in. It's almost like we're going backwards with Bray. Should we not be going forward maybe? But it also makes sense for his character. A guy like Braun Strowman, I think, is going to kind of start floundering a little bit soon. Maybe you reunite the Wyatt family a little bit, but in a different way with Bo Dallas. I don't know. I don't know if that would work. I don't know if I even like that, but it makes sense with his history if they're tying in all these little things. But I'm in the wait and see mode. As this aired, we're probably going to see a lot of things that have been different here, and maybe we're going to sound really smart and guess some of the things right, and maybe we're going to be way off. But that's the whole fun of the professional wrestling world right now. Is just to sit back and enjoy the ride.
So much changes in such a small amount of time, both on screen and off screen. So yeah, this conversation could be completely outdated by the time it comes out.
Where do you see Bray Wyatt in his place in the company as we head into the new year?
It's a very interesting question because, on this particular run, what lessons have they learned from the last one? And I feel like Bray Wyatt and the feed character really reached a ceiling where I don't think it's a character you can ever put a world championship on. At least not, the world championship. If you've got two of them, then sure, maybe pass one off to Bray Wyatt. But it's a character that has had real trouble creating compelling in-ring matches. And, a lot of the talent that he's ended up working with have had detrimental, damage, given to their careers as a result of trying to work that particular style. So I would hope that under Paul Levesque, he's learned a lot of the lessons that didn't work last time. I hope Wyndham Rotunda realizes a lot of the things that didn't work last time. I think his role should be a special attraction type of thing. Somebody like, what the Undertaker has sort of become like towards the latter stages of his career. Might make, an appearance or two to try to tell a story, but like as far as the matches go, you maybe save that. I mean, the Undertaker's maybe even a bad comparison because I think he really ended up making his name on having good matches towards the end of his career. So I don't know if you could even get that with Bray Wyatt, but there's a good wrestler underneath there. It's just sort of like muddied with all this gimmick stuff. So maybe he has to take the Taker approach where like he just has to start having bangers, and then you have all this sort of like storyline stuff on the side, still to maintain people's interest. But ultimately, I think a wrestler and a wrestling character, at least in modern times, needs to be able to deliver in the ring in order to kind of really reach the very top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's in a very unique spot right now, and I think this is a big make or break moment for him because he's almost got that clean slate with the comeback. So let's see if he can get elevated up to that upper level that he just, he was just underneath that A-list level. He was like a strong B plus, if you will, with that Fiend character. And, if he doesn't get up to that level now, I think that's just kind of the peak of where Bray is going to be in the company in general.
Yeah, this run will be very telling to see what they see for him. Obviously, there's like he doesn't need to be a top guy in order to be a top merch seller or even TV draw. Did they just keep him at this sort of level and make him an attraction without the championship? I think that's perfectly fine. But still, you're going to want to headline a pay-per-view or two with him. You're going to want to be able to tell some of these stories with the top guys with them, and that's going to have to result in a match. And what is that going to look like is the big question.
Yeah, and the last couple of questions I want to ask you here as we start to wrap this up, like we've said multiple times here, we're recording this in the middle of November. This is the time of the year where you start to hear Royal Rumble chatter and early year predictions. What are you most looking forward to as we come into the year 2023?
Obviously, I think WrestleMania and the main event the main events, I should say, for either of the two nights is going to be probably my biggest question heading into the new year. Besides, of course, the TV negotiations, which I believe are going to take place at some point. If not next year, then very shortly after that. I'm not the best with my timelines, but that's always going to be sort of the end game. The biggest story as it relates to both WWE and AEW are those TV rights renegotiations. But as far as creatively, I'm very curious to see if Dwayne Johnson is able to, make it to this year's WrestleMania in Los Angeles, and whether or not we ultimately get that dream match between Roman Reigns, who is hotter than I ever anticipated Roman Reigns being, and really, sets the perfect stage with this tribal chief character for a showdown with the biggest name to come out of that family in Dwayne Johnson. I hope that there's some possibility of that occurring. Recent rumors, of course, at this point, recording in November, of Stone Cold Steve Austin being offered another match. We could potentially foresee for, a big show, whether it be Saudi Arabia, but I'm personally hoping it'll be a WrestleMania, one of the nights. Who else is set to return? What is the status of Sasha Banks and Naomi in the new year? Cody Rhodes, him coming back potentially. What is his end goal? Could it be Roman? Could it be somebody else? There are, I think, a lot of really interesting pieces, and that's just WWE. With AEW, I really want to see them move away from all of this negativity that I think has plagued this company over the past several months. Can they rehab the image that I think the audience has of the company right now, which is that it seems to be a company plagued with some internal strife and lack of organization. There's a lot of questions right now, I think, about Tony Khan's continued aptitude in running a roster with as many personalities, and I think a roster at this point that is so bloated. Is he able to answer some of those challenges that still plague the women's division, for instance? Bringing in somebody like a Jeff Jarrett and putting him on screen, there have been a lot of questions about that creative choice. And AEW Rampage, to me, it's a topic of frequent discussion with me and John because he and I review it every single week. The lack of importance of that show has, I think, really grown over the past year to the point where I mean, the ratings are slipping, and it's also just overall feels more and more like a skippable show, unless they're doing, this sort of crazy matchmaking, stunt matchmaking that we've seen with Shibata versus Cassidy or Jun Akiyama occasionally appearing. Can those things be rehabbed? What is the status of Ring of Honor? To me, it being kind of shoved into AEW programming has not necessarily helped either. Well, it's helped the Ring of Honor stay alive, and it's helped promote the brand, but it's not really helped AEW, in my opinion, with too many championships. So what is the status of that? And can they achieve and grow their business, achieve the mainstream success without CM Punk? So that'll remain to be seen as well.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of great points you just brought up there. Now you got my brain spinning, but I think for me, I'm looking more towards the Royal Rumble, and I'm very interested because if they are going with The Rock and Roman Reigns as it's rumored for WrestleMania, and The Rock doesn't show up at the Royal Rumble, what do you do with the Royal Rumble winner? Because Roman's got both the belts.
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the past we've had instances where they've just kind of nullified the Rumble winner for whatever reason. Might have had him challenge the month prior or something like that, because I think Dwayne Johnson is such a big question mark. I feel like you still have to make the Rumble winner important. If it's Cody Rhodes, for instance, he has to have the challenge all the way up, and then maybe you work an angle where he gets injured. You work an angle where he's distracted by somebody else and he says, I hate this person so much, I'm going to wait, and I'm not going to challenge at WrestleMania. I'm going to take this guy instead, and I'm going to challenge you at the month after. It's wrestling, there are no rules about how you can, make all this stuff. The only thing you have to answer for is to make something that is satisfying for an audience that they can accept. If the alternative to the Rumble winner not necessarily having his match at WrestleMania, if the make good is The Rock versus Roman Reigns, I feel like most of the audience will accept it.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I love this whole Roman Reigns thing right now. To me, they've done a great job of not only making this title run mean something, but keeping him special by not putting him in the ring every week, by making his title defenses be important. It's almost like I get the vibes now when I watch a Roman Reigns title match that I used to get when I'd watch The Undertaker at WrestleMania, when he would have one of those Randy Orton challenges or Shawn Michaels, will the streak end? Will the title match end? That excites me watching Roman Reigns going forward.
Agreed. Absolutely. Yeah. When they started this entire experiment with Roman winning both championships and holding on to them on a part-time schedule, I was absolutely skeptical. But until this point, I think they've done a great job of building up his mystique, his aura, and having characters associated with him also be very compelling and strong in the bloodline, in Sami Zayn, in Paul Heyman, of course. All of those guys are almost like able to be like, sort of your substitutes for Roman Reigns, keeping his presence alive without him actually being there, and still being able to tell Roman's stories without him being there. They've done such a great job of building that it almost feels like he's not gone, as much as he is. And the byproduct of this entire thing 2 years in is that you have an incredibly dominant champion, a championship that I would argue is, the most valuable it's been in a long, long time, and championship matches that also feel special whenever they're being promoted either on PLE or on TV. So it's taken a lot to get there, and I think they've had a lot of luck in a lot of great talent and a lot of storylines clicking for them to get to this point, but now they're actually enjoying the fruits of their labor.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the year 2023. I'm looking forward to what you guys have in store. Can you let our listeners know everything about Post Wrestling and where they can find you guys?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Tyler, for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed the chat and being sort of asked questions about, for me, it's a great chance for me to kind of review the world of wrestling before we get into our end of season. But if you're listening to this right now, very likely we'll probably have our best of and worst of shows coming out this year. You can find it all by searching Post Wrestling on your Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast feeds. We're also up at youtube.com/postwrestling, where you can watch us do our podcast via video. We usually go live too every Monday and Wednesday after Raw and after Dynamite, and also after every single pay-per-view. If you really like us and if you want the full picture of our coverage, you can subscribe to our Patreon at postwrestlingcafe.com, where we do our SmackDown and Rampage reviews every single Friday, along with a bunch of other bonus shows. So thank you so much for the time, and I hope you guys enjoy our coverage for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Wai, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I go all the way back to the live audio wrestling days with the Mouth and Agnew, and this was just such a treat for me. And thank you for all the work you do. And to our listeners, I cannot recommend Post Wrestling enough. In my opinion, John and Wai are the most credible guys in the business. If you want your news confirmed and you see it on Post Wrestling, you can bet that it's legit, guys. So thank you again, Wai. Have a great holiday.
That means a whole lot. Thank you so much, Tyler, and all the best to you and Mike with Counted Out.
There you have it. What a fun chat with Mr. Wai Ting, talking all about Bray Wyatt's return. I know that, the follow-up to his return hasn't been, that great, in my opinion, at least. I think that it's been very slow, maybe a little bit slower than I would think it would go. But that being said, it doesn't take away from that moment, the build up and his return. I just thought it was one of the best moments of the year. Guys, I want to know what you think, though. Quick little recap. Number 7 moment of the year, Mickie James returning to the WWE at the Royal Rumble, opening up that forbidden door as the Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion. That was humongous to see. Number 6, just the year of Logan Paul in general. You cannot take away what this guy has done. And the number 5 moment of the year so far, the return of Bray Wyatt to the WWE. Leave me your comments, guys. Let me know what you think so far. Let me know what you think you're going to see next week. And next week, we've got where we're going to take the year home with a bang. Going to start things off by being joined by Homicide. Then we're going to have the one and only, the barn burner from Barry Wrestling, Van Landen, baby. Of course, we got to bring in our good friend Adam Contant, our Impact Wrestling analysis, and we're going to wrap up the year with our number 1 moment of the year. Mike and I are going to be joined by Vince Russo, bro. Are you kidding me? What a lineup that is. We worked really hard on this list for you guys. I hope that you've enjoyed part 1. Please come back next week for part 2. I got nothing more to say, man. This show exhausted me. So on behalf of Mike, who couldn't be here this week, I am Tyler, and you have been counted out, bro. Cheers.